Hi, everybody. It's Don, and we are going to start this live blog coming up in about a minute or so. Just want to let you know that we are here live on YouTube slash at Radio Dawn 1, and this will be replayed here. The audio portion of this is going to be on wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts, um, Pocket Casts, and now we're also on iHeart Radio. And if you'd like to help us out, and we really do need your support, please go to either radiodon.net and click support us, or just go directly to paypal.me/radiodon, and we really would appreciate your support. Information on the Patreon will be coming up very shortly. Now, let's get on with this. Okay, now we're on. Hi, everybody. If you're watching us live, thank you. If you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you. We really do appreciate it. I don't have a script, I never do. But basically, um, I'm frustrated. I'm not just frustrated about uh, the outcome of the debt ceiling thing, because it's not a final thing just yet. Nobody's getting exactly what they want, which means that there's going to be a lot of selling being done between crazy Uncle Joe and Charlie McCarthy. Um, you probably know all the details by now because they've they've all been mentioned on all the Sunday shows. I'm not going to go into it. I do know that there was a lot of fear mongering that was not necessary. For instance, I'm 68, and a lot of this stuff does not affect me directly because the increase in the age that you would be forced to find work to get food stamps went from 49 to 55. That's able bodied people with no dependents whatsoever. There's going to be a cap on non military spending, which means there's not going to be a cap on military spending, which means you're going to continue to pay for $20,000 toilets for the rest of our lives. Um, the IRS is going to be defunded. So JP Rockets has less to worry about. But that is not as much what bothers me as the fact that I have not seen so much hatred and ignorance since 1966. I'm old enough to remember that. As a young kid, but I do remember that. People are angry and people are scared for no good reason. I have a very good friend, for instance, who is transgender. I have several good friends who are transgender. One who lives in Great Britain, who who is my long distance girlfriend, you might say. And I fear for her because cancer spreads And this cancer that we are going through here in the United States is metastasizing at a rapid rate. People who I've always thought were really intelligent and logical and open minded are now turning into just. I think the best way to describe it is this. If you remember the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons back in the 60s, uh, for a kids show, they were also a great repository for political satire, which is probably one of the reasons I turned out the way I did. And one of the storylines was the fact that Rocky and Bullwinkle were fighting Fearless Leader and his two minions, Boris and Natasha. They had come up with something called goof gas, which turns relatively intelligent people into, I don't know, MTGs, I guess. I mean, for real. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about the day, and it is like, how did we all become so dumb so quickly? It's easy to blame the 45th president of the United States for this. It's easy to blame him for that, but I doubt that seriously. A lot of this started before he came down that escalator. This belief in stuff that has absolutely no basis in reality. No, I'm not talking about religion. I'm a Christian myself, so I'm about as guilty as anybody. But I'm talking about beyond that. I mean, we're talking about people who believe that there were rings of peas, you can fill in that blank, operating out of operating out of the basement of a pizza parlor somewhere in Washington. A pizza parlor that didn't have a basement. And it just keeps going from there. And it's frustrating. And within all that, there is a fear that I don't know where that came from. That fear metastasizes into a bigotry against anyone who is not Christian. And when I say not Christian, we're talking about their idea of what Christianity is. Anyone who is not Christian, anyone who is not heterosexual, anyone who is not monogamous, anyone who is not asexual unless you're married, and even if you do that, it's just basically wifely duties to get pregnant. If you're not that, you don't belong on the planet. I've never seen such bigotry since 1966. That was back in the days when sheriffs would sick rabid dogs on children as they and their parents were protesting the injustices being afforded to them by um, the various places where they lived. This has gone into, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not doing this from a script. It's just I'm just voicing my frustrations. For instance, the latest with Target. Now, I woke up Thursday morning after all the stuff I went through for the rest of the previous week. I woke up and found out that they want to boycott Target because they have a little bitty microscopic little corner in their stores set up for Pride Month next month in June. And by the way, Pride season lasts from May all the way up until September in in some places. So we're going to boycott Target, which is their right. But a lot of these people have gone into Targets and threatened these people with violence, with, as they say on the TikTok, unaliving, because we can't say the actual word. And there were reports that a lot of Targets around the country had either taken down their Pride section or moved it somewhere in the back where no one can see. Now, that was the report I've been getting from every news organization, locally and nationally. I live in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, and I had to go to Target because it's the closest place where I can get food. And I walked in, and this was after I kept hearing they've taken down the Pride stuff and they've taken out the LGBTQIA. I will also add the word P in there for polyamory. They've taken all that stuff down or moved it in the back or whatever. Guess what? That display in that store was right up front as you walked in for God and all the world to see. And as of yesterday, Saturday, it was still up there. They may have made a little movement of the table, but basically that section is still there. But you have a whole bunch of people who are basically attacking companies for showing tolerance and openness by saying we're going to drive you out of business. If you're woke, you're broke. They've already gone after 3 companies. They're going to go after others. Even if you give the impression that you may actually have a heart, they're going to go after you. Why? Because they are afraid of the inevitable. They are afraid of what is coming, and they don't. And somehow they're thinking that they are going to hold it back in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Acceptance is something they cannot accept. I remember back in the 60s. I remember back during the days of the Civil Rights Acts, civil rights protests, I should say. I remember the violence that was aimed at Black people, but for simply being Black. I remember reports of lynchings and things like that. And like a lot of people, we thought that was over. We thought after we passed the Civil Rights Act, people would be enlightened. Unfortunately, legislation does not enlighten someone. And like religious zealots around the world, zealotry also equals patience. They have been patient for almost 60 years. They've been patient until now. And this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in the middle of a civil war, the second civil war. We find ourselves in the middle of threats, threats of terror, threats of violence, and in many cases, actual violence. The reason why Target made the decision they made was not because they hate gay people, because they've had those displays in their stores for the last 10 years with no incident whatsoever. But they see what's happening in places like Texas twice, in Buffalo, New York, in other places where someone decides to grab an AR-15 or some sort of assault rifle and go into a store and start spraying. And I guess they care about their employees too much. That doesn't make any of this right. It would be great to see them stand up and fight the good fight, but this is not just some angry Karen with her husband whipping out the iPhone and shooting video. These are real people with real guns, with real bullets. And that is what people are looking at right now in terms of this. The problem is that they're running out of places that are safe, these bigots. Almost every company in America is, in some cases, woke in terms of LGBTQIA plus or other things. They're angry at Miller, not because of gays or trans or anything like that. It kind of basically pointed out that, women were instrumental in the brewing of beer. Women, they're angry about that. As if beer is supposed to be some sort of male-only thing. They're angry about that. And the reasons why they're doing it are some of the most ignorant reasons I can think of. And they're going after anyone who speaks up. I cannot tell you how this has affected me personally, but it has affected me personally. It has affected me personally in the last 2 weeks. And I'm wondering if there are any other people who have been attacked, not necessarily on social media with somebody saying you're dumb or you're crazy or what. That's par for the course. I'm talking about, going a little deeper. By the way, whoever was doing that, they have been reported to the proper authorities. So I don't think I'm going to worry about that too much. But I've never seen people with skin so thin. They resemble 99-cent store saran wrap. They're that thin. And I'm frustrated because there's nothing I can do here. I'm frustrated because I've always believed that you can do something, no matter what it is, you can do something to solve a problem, and I don't know what it is. Maybe you do. Maybe you have an idea. In the comments, please. I mean, today we are on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. I'd love to hear your comments either now or after. But what do you do about this? Because it's one thing to protest, but it's another to risk your life. And I'm not that brave. A lot of people are not that brave. We're in uncharted territory, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm frustrated. It's one of the reasons why I haven't done something like this in the last few days. It's to a point where I just can't get out of bed now. And by the way, if you hear the CBS tone in the background, that's my tone for notifications on my phone. If you hear that, I'm getting a text. I tried to silence it, but what the heck? So much for that. As for the debt ceiling, as you probably know, as I think I may have mentioned this earlier, uh, there's been an agreement in principle to raise the debt ceiling with conditions. Um, Everyone will say the other caved. And as I go through the list of things that there's been compromise on, I keep thinking about a scene in the Ayn Rand movie, The Fountainhead. It's about this Frank Lloyd Wright type architect who was played by Gary Cooper. And he was famous for very modernistic architecture. I mean, the stuff that was drawn for this movie, you can build today and it would look very, very modernistic. But most of the people that he was pushing this to were people who were very traditionalists. I'm sorry. I blame the stroke. So he finally gets someone to actually say, yes, we will do this. We will build your building. We will build based on your idea. Thankful. And he is showing the idea to these guys. And they seem to love it. They're ready to go with it. But they would only go for it with a few minor changes. Some columns, a few gables, a gargoyle here and there. Compromise. And when they were finished, that modern looking building looked like something out of the 1700s, and it was garish and disgusting. And I did not blame the character Gary Cooper played, Howard Rourke, for walking out of that building with his model and the contract in tatters. Compromise is the reason why we do not have a national healthcare system right now. Compromise is why we wound up having don't ask, don't tell several years ago. Compromise has been the basic poison of politics. And if for some reason I can get rid of that and actually move this towards what needs to be done, I'd be a very happy man. You know what I'd like to see happen? I've said this before, but I'd love to see the abolishment of both the Republican and Democratic parties and all the other parties as well. Libertarian, Peace, and Freedom, Green, all of those parties just put into the dumpster, along with the ideas of liberal, conservative, middle of the road, and fringe into the dumpster. Right, left, center, and all that crap into the dumpster. And while we're at it, noting that communism, capitalism, and socialism don't work. They're great on paper, but they don't work. Maybe it is time for artificial intelligence to take over because we humans aren't doing that great of a job. Get rid of all that crap and replace it with, I can't think of a word for it. I can't think of a sexy ism word for this. Maybe you can. Maybe you can mention that in the comments. I just can't think of a sexy one word phrase that would be social media acceptable for the term what works. Because whatever we're doing is not working. Thank you very much for hanging with me for this. We are now almost a half an hour in. And we thank you. One more thing. With this whole thing, I've had a really bad month. This debt ceiling situation and the holiday coming up have not made it any easier. And we are going to be looking for your support. If you're watching this on YouTube, we've got 1,700 followers. By the way, thank you for getting us there. 1,700 people. If half of you can help us out with, say, $1 or $2, at paypal.me/radiodon or cash.app/$radiodon. We really would appreciate it. We're working on other things to generate some stuff to keep us going. But if you like what you've heard, and apparently we've got at least one person who does, if you can help us out with 1, 2, 5, 10, whatever, we really would appreciate it because we are not sponsored. And I am not going to go through the hoops that you have to go through to get monetized by a lot of these platforms. So basically, yes, I'm depending on you people. And if you can help, thank you. If you can't, I understand. In the meantime, we'll be back soon with another one of these. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. We're Radio Don One on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. We're on Mastodon at radiodon@mas.to. You can find wherever we are, either if you can find us on radiodon.net or just our link tree. That's linktr.ee/radiodon. We love you, and we will talk to you very, very, very soon.